A very good morning, students. Last week we have seen a few lesions from fungal infection. Today I'm going to continue with the fungal infection, which includes cryptococcosis, zygomycosis, aspergillosis, and a protozoal infection, that is the toxoplasmosis. First, I will start off with cryptococcosis. Cryptococcosis. It is a relatively an uncommon fungal disease caused by yeast Cryptococcus neoformans. This organism normally causes no problem in immunocompetent people, but it can be devastating to the immunocompromised patient. Primary cryptococcal infection of the lungs is often asymptomatic, however, mild flu-like illness may develop. Patient might complain of a productive cough, chest pain, fever, and malaise. Most patients with diagnosis of cryptococcosis have a significant underlying medical problem related to immunosuppression. Example, systemic corticosteroid therapy, cancer chemotherapy, malignancy, and AIDS. Now we'll move on to the clinical feature. The dissemination of the infection is common in these immunocompromised patients, and the most frequent site of involvement is the meninges, followed by the skin, bone, and the prostate gland. The cutaneous lesion appears as erythematous papule or pustule that may ulcerate and discharge a pus-like material which is rich in cryptococcal organism. Oral lesion appears as a crater-like non-healing ulcer that are tender on palpation or a fragile papillary erythematous plaque. This is the clinical picture of an cryptococcosis. You can see a gingival enlargement both in the maxilla as well as in the mandible, which is erythematous in nature, which has a granular texture, and you can see a micro ulceration over the swelling, and there is some serous secretion with some bleeding spots. Now we'll see the histopathological features. The yeast appears as a round or ovoid structure which is 4 to 6 micrometer in diameter, which will be surrounded by a clear hollow that represents the capsule. Staining with PAS or methenamine silver method readily identifies the fungus. So this is the histopathological picture of an cryptococcosis. So this picture shows you the numerous organisms that have a large round mucoid capsule giving the appearance of a clear zone around a faint round nucleus. So I have made a multiple arrow marking, so that shows you the organism. The organism is Cryptococcus neoformans. Now we'll move on to the treatment aspect. For cryptococcal meningitis, a combination of systemic amphotericin B and another antifungal drug, that is flucytosine, is used initially for 2 weeks in most cases to treat this disease. Then either fluconazole or itraconazole is given for additional period of 10 weeks. For mild cases of pulmonary cryptococcosis, only fluconazole or itraconazole may be used. Now we'll see about zygomycosis. It is otherwise called as mucormycosis. It is an opportunistic, frequently fulminant fungal infection that is caused by seborrhoeic organism of the class Zygomycetes. It may involve any one of several areas of the body, but rhinocerebral form is the most relevant to the oral healthcare providers. It is noted especially in insulin-dependent diabetes and patients who are taking a deferoxamine, that is an iron chelating agent that is used to treat a disease such as thalassemia. Now we'll see the clinical features. Patient may experience a nasal obstruction, bloody nasal discharge, facial pain or headache, facial swelling or cellulitis, and visual disturbances with concurrent proptosis. With progression of the disease into cranial vault, blindness, lethargy, and seizures may develop, followed by death. If maxillary sinus is involved, the initial process may be as an intraoral swelling of the maxilla-alveolar process, palate, or both. If the condition remains untreated, the palatal ulceration may evolve with the surface of ulcer typically appearing black or necrotic. So this is the clinical picture of mucormycosis. You can see an palatal ulcer, which is necrotic and well delineated, with well-defined borders can be seen, and the appearance gives you a whitish and few areas little bit of blackish appearance. Now we'll see the histopathological features. Histopathologically, it shows extensive necrosis with numerous large branching non-septate hyphae at the periphery. The hyphae tend to branch at 90 degrees angle. This is the histopathological picture of a mucormycosis. Like other fungal infection, even this organism stains good with PAS or methenamine silver stain. So I have made an arrow marking. So the arrow marking shows you a large branching non-septate hyphae. Now we'll see the treatment aspect. The successful treatment of mucormycosis consists of rapid, accurate diagnosis of the condition followed by the radical surgical debridement of the infected necrotic tissue and systemic administration of high doses of one of the lipid formulation of amphotericin B. Now we'll see about aspergillosis. Aspergillosis is a fungal disease that is characterized by non-invasive and invasive form. The non-invasive form usually affect a normal host appearing either as an allergic reaction or a cluster of fungal hyphae, whereas the invasive infection is often evident in immunocompromised patients. The two most commonly encountered species of Aspergillus are Aspergillus flavus and Aspergillus fumigatus. Now we'll see clinical features. In normal hosts, the disease may appear as an allergy affecting either sinus, that is an allergic fungal sinusitis, or the bronchopulmonary tract. An asthma attack may be triggered by the inhalation of spores by susceptible person. Sometimes a low-grade infection becomes established in the maxillary sinus, resulting in a mass of fungal hyphae called an aspergilloma. Occasionally, the mass will undergo dystrophic calcification, producing a radio-opaque body called anthrolith within the sinus. The painful gingival ulceration are initially noted, and peripherally, the mucosa and the soft tissue develops diffuse swelling with a grey hue. If the disease is not treated, there will be an extensive necrosis seen clinically as a yellow or black ulcer, and facial swelling might evolve. The disseminated aspergillosis occurs principally in immunocompromised patients and typically has a chest pain, cough, and fever. So this is the clinical picture of an aspergillosis, and we can see an extensive necrosis which is black in appearance, and peripherally there is a little bit of ulceration is seen. Now we'll move on to the histopathological features of aspergillosis. In the non-invasive form of aspergillosis have histopathological features that differs from the invasive form of aspergillosis. The aspergilloma, that is the non-invasive form, is characterized by a tangled mass of hyphae with no evidence of tissue invasion. Whereas in allergic fungal sinusitis, on the other hand, histopathologically exhibits a large pool of eosinophilic mucin with interspread sheets like collections of lymphocytes and eosinophils. Relatively, a few fungal hyphae are identified on careful examination with methenamine silver stain. You can see two histopathological pictures in this slide. So it is the histopathological picture of an aspergillosis. So left side picture represents the non-invasive form of aspergillosis, whereas the right side picture represents the invasive form of aspergillosis. So the left side picture you can see a numerous organism, so which has no invasion, so it is a non-invasive form. Whereas the right side picture there is only a less number of organism with the tissue invasion. Now we'll see the treatment aspect. For immunocompromised patient with the non-invasive aspergilloma, surgical debridement is necessary. The patient who have an allergic fungal sinusitis are treated with debridement and corticosteroid drug. For localized invasive aspergillosis, In immunocompromised host, debridement followed by antifungal medication is indicated. Mainly amphotericin B or voriconazole is indicated. Now we'll move on to toxoplasmosis. Toxoplasmosis is a relatively common disease caused by obligate intracellular protozoal organism, that is Toxoplasma gondii. This disease can be devastating for developing fetus or immunocompromised patient. Now we'll see the clinical features. It is often asymptomatic. If symptoms develops, they are mild and resembles infectious mononucleosis. The patient may have a low-grade fever, cervical lymphadenopathy, muscle or joint pain, and fatigue. In immunocompromised patient, the manifestation of the infection includes necrotizing encephalitis, pneumonia, myositis, or myocarditis. The congenital toxoplasmosis occurs when the non-immune mother contracts the disease during her pregnancy and the organism crosses the placental barrier, infecting the developing fetus. The potential effect of blindness, mental retardation, and delayed psychomotor development are most serious if the infection occurs during the first trimester of pregnancy. Now we'll see the histopathological features. The histopathological examination of the lymph node obtained from a patient with active toxoplasmosis shows a characteristic reactive germinal centers exhibiting an accumulation of eosinophilic macrophages. The macrophage encroaches on the germinal centers and accumulate within the subcapsular and sinusoidal region of the node. Now we'll see the treatment aspect. Most healthy adults with toxoplasmosis requires no specific treatment. The pregnant women should avoid situations placing them at risk of the disease, such as eating raw meat or cleaning cat litters. If exposed, the combination of sulfadiazine and pyrimethamine often prevents the transmission of organism to the fetus. In AIDS patient, the prophylactic administration of trimethoprim and sulfamethoxazole is generally recommended. So last class I have asked a few questions in the Google form and everyone have responded your answers, but most of your answers were wrong. So I want to clarify all the answers. So this was the histopathological picture which I have put in the Google form, and I have asked what is the diagnosis for this histopathological picture and what are all the features you can see from this histopathological picture. Most of you have written it as an chronic hyperplastic candidiasis. Few have written it as an blastomycosis, and some have written it as an oral candidiasis. So first I will explain what are all the features you can see from this picture. You can see an hyperplastic epithelium. The entire picture shows you the epithelium. Only a small bit of connective tissue can be seen. The black arrow indicates the connective tissue. Okay, then you can see a superficial parakeratotic desquamatic layer can be seen. The arrows is pointing out the candidal hyphae. So the candidal hyphae is seen in the superficial layer, and few candidal hyphae can be seen in a stratum spinosum layer also. I have made one round marking, so that marking shows you the neutrophils. So the most probable diagnosis for this particular picture is oral candidiasis or candidiasis. And if you want to specify the type, it can be a pseudomembranous type of candidiasis. Why? Because both the pseudomembranous candidiasis as well as the chronic hyperplastic candidiasis will have an hyperplastic epithelium, but the chronic hyperplastic candidiasis will have the dysplastic epithelium. Okay, so there will be few dysplastic cells will be present in case of a chronic hyperplastic candidiasis, which is absent in case of a pseudomembranous candidiasis. Whereas if you go for the other type, that is the erythematous candidiasis, in erythematous candidiasis the epithelium will be of an atrophy type. So I hope now you can able to see all the features in this histopathological picture, and it is an candidiasis or it can be a pseudomembranous type of candidiasis. So next I have asked a question about this histopathological picture, what the black arrow indicates. So almost everyone have written it as a blastomycosis. It is not a blastomycosis. It is an marine wheel appearance of an paracocdioidomycosis. So the pink color arrow indicates the parent cell which is surrounded by the multiple daughter buds. So only two of your batchmates have written it correctly. I have to congratulate both of you, that is Rajanisha and yes Kirtana. So both of you have written it as an marine wheel appearance of paracocdioidomycosis. And Kirtana, you made one small mistake and you have indicated this as a giant cell. It is not a giant cell. Okay, so that is one small mistake which you have made. Otherwise, you both have written it correctly. Good. So the next I have asked about what is valley fever. So the valley fever is if the erythema nodosum produces an hypersensitivity reaction, if this hypersensitivity reaction occurring in conjunction with the coccidioidomycosis, then it is termed as a valley fever. But most of you have written it as this or the hypersensitivity reaction occurring in conjunction with coccidioidomycosis is termed as valley fever. That is not correct. You have to mention which produces that hypersensitivity reaction. So here the erythema nodosum produces the hypersensitivity reaction. If the erythema nodosum hypersensitivity reaction in conjunction with coccidioidomycosis is termed as a valley fever. So the final one is I have asked about the mulberry-like ulceration in oral cavity is seen in, and most of you have written it as 3. And the answer for that question is paracoccidioidomycosis. See, I know why I have written it as 3 because first நான் ஒரு Google form send பண்ணியிருந்தேன். அதில் வெறும் numbers மட்டும்தான் டைப் பண்ணுற மாதிரி ஆப்ஷன் இருந்துச்சு. அதனால தான் இமீடியட்டாக நான் வந்து இன்னொரு Google form சென்ட் பண்ணேன். ஸோ நீங்கள் ஆன்சர்ஸை வந்து உங்களோட குரூப் வாட்ஸ்அப் குரூப்லேயோ இல்லை ஃபோன்லேயோ டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணியிருக்கலாம். சரி, அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் டைப் பண்ணுற மாதிரி ஆப்ஷன் கொடுத்துட்டேனே, அதுக்கப்புறமா அதை யோசிச்சு 3ன்னு ஒரு ஆன்சர் வருமானது கூட யோசிக்காம அப்படியே காப்பி பேஸ்ட் பண்ணியிருக்கீங்க. கொஞ்சம் கூட பிரெயின் ஒர்க் ஆகாது. மல்பரி லைக் அல்சரேஷன் இஸ் சீன் இன் 3ன்னு ஒரு ஆன்சரா அப்படின்னு கூடவா யோசிக்க மாட்டீங்க? அவ்வளோ கூட டைம் இல்லையா யோசிக்க? சரி, இங்கே பார்த்தீங்கன்னா 1 மணிக்கு 1:10க்கு சிலர் 4 மணிக்கெலாம் சென்ட் பண்ணியிருக்கீங்க. ஓகேவா, அதுவும் என்கிட்ட இருக்குது. ஓகே, இதில் உங்கள் நேம்ஸும் வரும். நான் தான் க்ராப் பண்ணி நேம்ஸ் போட வேண்டாம், நான் தான் போடல. ஐ டோன்ட் வாண்ட் டு எம்பாரஸ் யூ. ஓகே, அண்ட் இப்படி தான் உங்களோட ஆன்சர்ஸ் இருக்குது. ஓகே, தேங்க்யூ ஸோ மச். So to conclude today's class, today I have started off with the cryptococcosis. The cryptococcosis is caused by Cryptococcus neoformans. In that, the oral lesion appears as crater-like non-healing ulcer that are tender on palpation. The yeast appears as round or ovoid in structure. Next, we have seen about the zygomycosis. The zygomycosis is caused by zygomycetes. If it is untreated, the ulceration appears as black and it will be of necrotic in nature. The hyphae tend to branch at 90 degrees angle. Then we have seen about the aspergillosis. In aspergillosis, we have seen 2 forms, that is the non-invasive form and the invasive form. Non-invasive form which has a cluster of fungal hyphae with no tissue invasion, and whereas in invasive form there will be a few fungal hyphae with tissue invasion. Finally, we have seen about the toxoplasmosis, which is a protozoal organism. It affects on immunocompromised patient and developing fetus. Histopathologically, it shows a reactive germinal centers. So that completes my fungal infection topic. I guess you'd have understood all the fungal infection. If you have any doubts regarding today's class, you can write down your doubts in the Google form. Thank you. Have a great day.